My name is Sydni Craig-Hart. I am the CEO of Smart Simple Marketing, which is a multi-award winning marketing solutions provider. We work primarily with technology companies on their content marketing strategy and amplification in order to help boost retention, reduce churn, and increase customer loyalty, in many cases with small business audiences. So I'm thrilled to be here with you today. I personally have been a public speaker for over 30 years. I'm very well trained as such and have a lot of experience in doing so. And as such, have spoken on a lot of stages. So I'm excited to have this conversation with some fellow women in product sisters so that we can share with you some tips on how you can not only be more visible in the pool of submissions that women in product are going to receive, but I trust that the information you receive today is going to help you if you submit to speak at other events in 2021 and beyond. So I have with me today Kalia Aragon and Jessica Cherny, who are also going to weigh in on this conversation. So Kalia, we'll start with you first. If you could introduce yourself to our audience, tell us a little bit about your background and why you're here with us today.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Sydney. And, just to echo some of Sydney's points, I've been a public speaker for a while, not necessarily in this space. I'll talk to you a lot about how I transitioned some of my previous experiences into kind of the product space and digital conferences. That is a bit new to me. So I'm a product manager at Disney Streaming, Disney Plus, Baby Yoda, WandaVision, all those things. I help all make that happen. But you can read that in my bio. The thing that it doesn't talk about is the years and years I spent working in the nonprofit space, doing social good work and green organizing and all those kinds of fun things. So I'll bring you a little bit about what it's like translating and mostly taking experiences that don't necessarily fit into the technology traditional space and putting them in this one. So I'll give you a bit of an outsider's perspective on getting on the inside here.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Kalia. And Jessica, we'd love to hear an introduction from you as well. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Sydney. Thanks for hosting and super excited to be on this panel with all you amazing ladies. My name is Jessica. I head up a one-woman data analytics team at a now Series D startup called Ironclad. We're a legal tech digital contracting platform company based of about 180 employees. So getting there, riding on that rocket ship. And my work deals day to day with both internally facing data organization and strategy insights, as well as externally facing data insights and dashboarding and reporting tools to service our customers. So there's a lot who I interface with both cross-functionally on internally, and then a lot of enterprise and corporate customers who I learn from daily. So and I work a lot within the product team and work closely with product managers and project managers. So have a lot of experience there and kind of rallying the forces in kind of a scrappy way. Based in San Francisco. So
awesome. That's fantastic. Thank you for that. One question I wanted to ask both of you, Jessica, we'll start with you. Why do you pursue speaking opportunities? How does that fit into your own personal professional journey?
It's a good question. I was told early in my career is just to put yourself out there and really practice speaking, because every time you do it, you get better, more confidence, you learn from all of your speaking engagements, and you grow where you are most uncomfortable. So it's not that I'm uncomfortable speaking in front of others, but it is a lot of pressure, especially with folks who are potentially way more experienced than you and know a lot more than you do. So just putting yourself out there has been really good for myself. And I thought I should just do it and learn from the other talented ladies, especially in the women in product space who are speaking. So yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you. How about you, Kalia? How does that fit for you? Why do you sign up and submit to speak at various events?
Yeah, I don't want to steal someone else's thunder, but a very important day happened yesterday, right? When it comes to representation and creating visibility for folks to be able to see themselves in positions they might not have thought they could have been able to have been in. And so that's part of the reason why I try to be really visible, not just in speaking panels, but in online communities and having one-on-one interactions with people that aren't in my department or in my company. I'm one of the people that actually responds to folks when they randomly LinkedIn message you you and set up one-on-one. So I think it's really important to be visible. I represent a lot of different identities that you don't always see at the forefront, especially in the technology space. So I really hope to create more visibility so folks feel like there's less barriers and it's not just a bunch of white men talking about agile all the time. It's us sharing our unique stories and challenges and experiences, and hopefully inspiring all of you to apply as well and remove some of the barriers that we maybe have because of our lived experiences that maybe other different kinds of folks with different identities have. So I think it's important to break down those barriers, show them it's possible, and that it's obviously not that hard because like I did it. So I think that's also really important as well.
Yeah, thank you. For me, I love speaking, obviously, because I've been doing it for a really long time since I was very young, since I was really, really young. And it is something I really enjoy because it gives me such a great opportunity to learn from the experience and learn from my audience. And being a founder, being a woman, being a Black woman in the tech industry, I think it's really important that for my sisters around me that they see faces that look like them in this space. And there's so many dimensions to my company that I think are important for me to raise awareness of, and the issues that surround that. I do a lot of speaking about supplier diversity and the importance of embracing diverse perspectives and bringing those to the table. I talk a lot about multicultural marketing because that's a lot of the work that we do. So many of my clients are women in product, actually. So speaking at this particular event helps me learn more about the roles that they play and the struggles that they face. So it's a great visibility opportunity for me, much like it is for you, Kalia, but it's also such a great learning experience and it's a great exercise in personal growth. So I just thought it was fun because we sit in such different roles, all three of us, to hear about why we pursue speaking opportunities. So thanks for sharing your insight on that. Now, Kalia, we'll come back to you with this next question. Can you share a little bit with us about your experience at Women in Product 2020? What was your experience like at the event and what was your talk about?
Yeah, definitely. So I kind of set myself up unintentionally. So my actual talk was against the grain, why to hire non-traditional product managers. So again, folks that don't have a degree in computer science, aren't like Jessica and brilliant and started working in data and analytics, right? Who kind of maybe came from a more non-traditional, non-technology background. And so it was really just basically backwards going through my history and the different experiences I had working in organizing, in nonprofit, and how those translated to strong components of being a product manager. Things like working in nonprofit means you do the job before people, which is kind of what it's like to be a product manager at certain companies where TPMs and program managers and product people and QA. And so that ability to be scrappy and get the job done with the resources you have was a big part of what has now made me successful, but I learned those skills in a different space. And so was really making a pitch simultaneously to folks that maybe have those non-traditional backgrounds to apply for product roles, but more so trying to talk to the leaders in the room that control hiring and influence the process and how we do it. Some tiny tactical changes on how we can change job descriptions. There have been a lot of language analysis that talk about how job descriptions that include words like teamwork and collaboration draw more female candidates or femme candidates, and words like competition and aggressive return attract more men, and how we can be more intentional with how we try and attract candidates. And just the elephant in the room, which is unconscious bias and just the different biases that we bring into our everyday lived experience. I shared pretty candidly that I have a bias against white men, and sometimes I have to check that when I work with some of my peers to not be unintentionally biased towards them. And so, I tried to use my own story as an example and a backdrop, but really give tangible takeaways for companies to improve the way that we hire. So we have not just diverse looking teams, but diverse teams when it comes to diversity of thought as well, from different backgrounds and specialties.
Oh, Sydney, you're on
Thank
mute.
you so much. I didn't get a chance to see your session and now I want to go back and watch it. Thanks for sharing that description. How about you, Jessica? What was your experience like? And tell us about your talk.
Yeah, it was really cool. It was interesting, my first remote conference, so that was really well produced. And my talk was about building a data culture. and something just that I know intimately, building a data culture from the ground up at a startup, and how not only as data focused PMs can use data to better understand their processes, their products, but also be cross-functional partners across the organization. This is easier at a startup, I guess, than it is probably at a bigger company, and how data is that key linking language between different stakeholders across company that make business go forward. So I talked about how to build your data MVPs, whether that's a dashboard, just get something out there that shows data to your stakeholders. Don't let perfect be the enemy of the good. And I talked about analytics roundtables, how we at Ironclad started this kind of mini tradition of getting cross-functional data interested people in a virtual table just to discuss kind of the data initiatives that they're working on, where there are gaps, how can we better improve processes. And then I outlined some more advanced data methodologies that product managers and data analytics / data science folks can use to better understand things like customer churn, or feature adoption prediction, or forecasting priorities for product teams in the next couple quarters. So things like that. Yeah, I think
Okay.
that's basically it. And how, it's always an iterative process to improve. So just get started on building data culture is important.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I love that you said don't let the perfect get in the way of the good. It's so easy to do that and be waiting for perfection. And when is everything ever perfect? Like never. So thank you for calling that out. Now, Jessica, how long would you consider yourself like you've been a public speaker? How long have you been doing this?
I'd say a year and a half, because yeah, ever since this job kind of just forced me to be out in the open and kind of lead this function. So about a year and a half.
Okay, nice. And how about you, Kalia?
So I think I'm more like you, Sydney. So I just turned 30 this year. So I would say I've probably been a public speaker for about 30 years.
Yeah.
But what was really difficult about this is that I haven't worked in product. And so I think a lot of my apprehension was not being in this industry for a while. So although I had the confidence of public speaking, it's such a different language to speak in this space. And so I've really only been working in traditional tech for about 3 years. So that was the biggest challenge for me, kind of being worried I didn't have the skills to kind of speak in this space.
Yeah, so listen to that, ladies, because if you feel like you're new, or you feel like you've recently transitioned, or you don't feel like you've been speaking for 30 years, that's okay. That shouldn't hold you back. You definitely still have a voice, and you have a message, and you have a story, and there's still a space for you. So don't let your seeming lack of experience hold you back. You still have a lot to offer. And the reason I wanted to ask you that is because speaking in a virtual environment is very different than speaking on a stage. There's a lot of similarities, but it is different. And, we were all thrust into transitioning to speaking only in virtual events in 2020 for obvious reasons. So I'd love to hear your perspective. We'll start with you, Jessica. What challenges do you think are unique to applying to speak at a virtual only conference or event? Like, how is it different than perhaps speaking at applying to speak at a live event?
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but in previous women in product years, did we have to like also submit like video snapshot? Okay, so I think the actual submission part is submitting your video is the same, but when you're actually at the event, because it's recorded, you pre-record yourself speaking, and you can get as many shots one to like record yourself speaking, and if you don't like the way you said something, you can always re-record, which is nice. But I also think you're missing the serendipity of actually emoting and being excited by the people in the room, and it's hard to like rally yourself up to that kind of excitement level when you're recording yourself for like the 20th time sometimes. So there's, I think, pros and cons, but I do really miss both like the nervous feeling of being in front of so many people live, but also kind of the excitement. So I think just to boost your excitement up when you are recording, just pretend like something's just really exciting. This is like good for your, career or network, and you're, dropping a lot of knowledge, but it's hard to rally yourself up to that same level. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I can appreciate that for sure. How about you, Kalia? What do you think is a unique challenge to applying to speak at a virtual only conference?
mean, I second a lot of what Jessica said in regards to the energy piece. So a lot of my experience speaking was on stages. And so for me, as a presenter and as a storyteller, it was really difficult to figure out how to tell stories in a different medium, because I love a crowd, and I think it makes it so much easier to speak when you have that energy and I can use my full body. And I'm like stuck in this little box, and before, my hair was really long, so it would like always hit the mic. I used to have to make all those considerate. I had to think about how to translate all that. And so for me, it was really hard, like Jessica said, to maintain the energy. But I think even as it comes to storytelling and content, I really had to make a lot of choices. And so we're so inundated, at least with me, and I know a lot of product folks are, with virtual meetings. So it was the question of, how do I make this feel like not like every other meeting? Because I don't know about you all, but like there gets to the point where I start tuning out. And I want to make sure that whoever's watching isn't like dying watching what I'm saying. And so it was a balance of trying to figure out, should I use slides? Should I not use slides? Should there be interactive pieces? Making all of these stylistic choices, which if it was going to be in a virtual, if it was going to be in person, would have been way easier for me to make. But I think it's going to be up to the presenter to choose which medium they feel most comfortable in, which is what I would encourage you to do. Don't add slides if it makes you uncomfortable. Just talk to the camera. Or if you love slides, lean into that. And so I would say, when you make those choices, to try and trust your gut, but do consider this is probably could feel a lot like the same of what people are having in their day, and try and figure out how you can make it feel a little bit different.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think one of the things I noticed, and I either spoke at or moderated a session at 23 different virtual events last year. So I did a lot of speaking in just like 6 months. That was between June and December. And one of the things I noticed, that because everything's shifted to virtual, a lot of organizers were shifting their agenda and the number of sessions they had. And so frankly, there ended up being a lot more competition. Like, I spoke at Inbound and I also spoke at B2B Forum. And in both of those events, I know that the speaking roster got cut, because I got an email that said, we still want your session, so we still want to include you. But unfortunately, we did have to cut a number of speakers that we had already committed to including. So sometimes, just because of the dynamic, you can't have as many breakout rooms as you might have in an in-person event, or you can't have as many concurrent sessions. Sometimes there's just not enough time. And so when you're applying, you're actually applying for a fewer number of spots than you perhaps would be at an in-person event. So just, there are some dynamics to, as you ladies both mentioned, how you show up, how you submit your presentation, and just even the whole process of how the application process works. With women in product, Kalia, we'll come back to you for this next question. What was your experience like with the speaker submission process? How did you prepare?
Yeah, so I'm going to be super transparent. It was really difficult. And so I think half of that was, again, for the reasons I talked about before, making those stylistic choices on how I wanted to set up the talk, what I wanted to use in it. But I think the other half was what we talked about earlier, was a lot of that doubt in myself. And so I think a big thing was like, I wanted to get it perfect. So Jessica's, don't let it be the blocker to getting it right. And so I probably sat on that. No, I'm sure someone can verify. I turned it in like 5 seconds before, like 5 minutes before the actual cutoff happened, because I just kept like spiraling, and I just brainstormed till I like had no more Google Drive space. Like, it was just really difficult. And so if I can give anyone like a piece of advice on that process, is like, just let it go. Like, put on some Frozen and just be like, this is good. And I will say that the team, the women in product team that you coordinate with, they're so accessible. I messaged them during the submission process to clarify questions, to get extra feedback, and they were super supportive. But for me, the blocker was having to ask for help in the first place. I'm not good at asking for help. I just like figure it out and do it my own way. So I would say a second piece of that is ask for help from the women in product folks, from us here in this community, but also your coworkers. I had a coworker, her name's Edelyn, who was like on the phone with me brainstorming my outline for hours. I felt so bad for her because I was being my neurotic self. And so make sure you reach out. You don't have to do this by yourself, especially if you're the only one at your company who's applying to speak. Like, leverage the other incredible humans at your company to try and make something that you feel really proud of. But the caveat is it's also not that serious, and you can change your talk a million times before it actually happens. So give yourself some grace.
Yeah, I want to call out two things. First of all, I see a bunch of questions popping up in the chat, which is awesome. We did leave time at the end for questions. So if you have one, I am not ignoring you. I promise you I will come back to your question. Please type it in so you don't forget. Number two, I was going to say one thing Kalia said, which was don't be afraid to reach out to the event organizer to bounce ideas and ask questions. I think a lot of people don't do that, especially women, and you really can get their input to help clarify your idea. They're a really valuable resource, and they want you to show up and put your best foot forward too. So don't look at them just as a group of people that you need to impress, but look at them as a partner and as a resource, and leverage their expertise. I do that all the time when I'm thinking about submitting a speaking pitch, especially if it's an event that I haven't pitched for before, or I don't really know anyone there. I'll just reach out and start building that relationship. So it's a really powerful way to establish yourself with that particular event just by reaching out. So Jessica, I'll come to you with the same question. What was your experience like with the speaker submission process, and how did you prepare for that?
Yeah, like so much of what Kalia said. I didn't reach out to the women product organizers, although that's a fantastic idea. Like, I wish there was like some Slack channel with the with the speakers where we could all interface. But for me, I started with one outlining my talk in a Google Doc, and then I actually bounced off my ideas with my manager, who's the VP of product at Ironclad, as well as my sister, who's also a data analyst at another company. So just having the kind of like one person above me, one person that's a peer, kind of just helped me structure my talk as, okay, this relates to data analysts as well as PMs. Really helped kind of structure that as the audience, and have their honest feedback. My sister is definitely really honest and really helps me with in that way. I was honestly nervous to share my video once I recorded it. I recorded it also like a couple days before the event, and I like didn't even want to share it with my parents or my sisters or anything. I was like, I submitted it and I didn't want to share it with anyone. After I submitted it, I like shared it with my parents and stuff, and my sisters and loved ones. But it was nervous. I'm still kind of nervous to share it even after the fact with my coworkers, because they've been asking for it. But yeah, that takes a lot of guts, and I think honestly it's all in my head, and honestly I would have benefited from just sharing it with the folks that really had my best interest at heart. At the same time though, those that who you share your videos with, there can be a stew of different ideas and voices on how how to edit your talk, how to change your voice, how to change your pitch and tone and whatever. And so you want to be wary of that, because you want to be true to your voice and your presentation style, and you don't want it to like be lost in the soup of people who are trying to look out for you, but at the same time like inserting their own ways and thoughts and opinions on how to do things. So just be wary of that. But yeah, keep basically the TLDR of this is just to keep your tribe small and narrow down to the people who you really trust. And as far as submission goes, yeah, I recorded it and also submitted, I think, at the last hour or so. So it's okay. That we all are busy and have other things to do, but as long as you turn it in on time, I think you're okay.
Yeah, and trust me, I have a bunch of friends who are event organizers. They expect that. They know they're going to get a flurry of submissions at the beginning and a trickle in the middle, and then the last like 2 hours, they're going to get the bulk of them. So Kalia, if you submitted yours 5 seconds before, cool, you got in, all good. That's fine. There was a whole lot of other folks doing that too. Thank you both for sharing your experiences. And I will just share mine. I'll be honest, I actually didn't, well, no, that's not true. I did submit to speak at WIP, truth be told, and my talk was not picked up. And I said, that's okay. I actually submitted it after the deadline. And so I kind of didn't think I had a good chance of being picked up anyway. So I wasn't surprised when I got a no. But then a week later, I got a message and they were like, hey, are you available to moderate this session? And I was like, sure. So I did not have a conventional experience. I would not recommend submitting your pitch after the deadline, but I just figured I had nothing to lose, so I tried it anyway, and it worked out. So I don't have a great story to share like they did, but just in terms of what I normally do when I'm submitting on time, is I really try to go back and look at past events. And at least look at the agendas and see kind of what the tracks are and how they do their titles and kind of how they structure their talks, how they do their breakouts, how they do their talk descriptions, who some of their speakers are. Since I work in marketing, I know a lot of the players in marketing. So I really try to get a feel for the theme and the vibe of the event and figure out how I can best fit into that. Like, what dimension of Sydney do I want to bring to this event? Or what dimension of Smart Simple Marketing do I want to bring to this event? And you really want to try your best to align whatever it is you want to speak on or present on with whatever is most relevant or most current to that particular event. So sometimes I know as speakers or experts, we really want to say what we want to say. And that's something that, we all can kind of struggle with. But when you're submitting to speak at an event, you really want to show up as someone who gets what they're trying to produce and the end product that they want to deliver, and that you are offering a piece of that. And so I think that's the most important piece of advice I can offer with your submission, is to make sure that it's as relevant as possible so that you can really stand out in the crowd, and it doesn't feel like something that is regurgitated, and it also doesn't feel like something that they've heard before, but it's really fresh and current and relevant. Let's see. Okay, we'll come back to those questions in just a moment. So a couple of other points I wanted to hear both of your perspectives on is, once you were accepted to speak at Women in Product, what did you start doing then to actually prepare your talk and get ready for the process of pre-recording your session and then preparing to participate in the interactive session? Can you walk us through the exact steps you took? That would be great for our audience to hear. So Jessica, we'll go with you first.
Okay, cool. Yeah, similar to what I said before, after I was accepted, I began an outline of like, okay, in your submission, actually you outline the 3 takeaways that you want, at least for 2020, the 3 takeaways that your audience should leave with after your talk. And there are 3 little nuggets. I think they're around 200 characters each. I don't remember, something short, sound bites. And I expanded on those 3 different takeaways. And in my outline, I expanded each one of them would be around 5 minutes. And I then outlined like what I would specifically talk about, the different stories I would bring up under each takeaway. And then I decided to move that outline into a slideshow, into Google Slides. I found a really good slide outline and slide like template design. I think it was like slide carousel. And I imported that in, saved a lot of time on slide design because I'm not a good designer. I want to export that effort away. So I put that outline into slide form, and then I practiced and got that feedback from my manager and my sister, and then recorded myself, I think like 5 to 8 times, don't remember, and then submitted to make sure I was timing myself to the 17 or 19-minute time block that I was allotted. And yeah, I think that was mostly it.
Okay, then how did you manage did you do any practicing before, Jessica? And when you were practicing, what were you looking for and how did you manage that process?
Yeah, so I practiced just without any timer, each one of my slides and kind of the stories I wanted to tell. And while it's different from what you write on paper to what you actually say. You're actually looking for really good transitions. And I think I had to refine my transitions to each of my nuggets of takeaways. And that's something to look out for. Like, how do you do that seamlessly in a really good flow that's still relevant from point A to point B to point C? And yeah, I practiced a couple times without timing, but then to actually really set yourself in the environment of, recording yourself. I just straight up recorded myself so many times just to be under a time pressure, but also, not mess with maybe my hair, or not look to the side too much if I'm trying to read off something, and use my hands because, I talk a lot with my hands just to demonstrate things and my excitement. So putting yourself kind of like, when you're taking the SAT in high school, if you take some practice SATs that mimic the actual environment, I think that's really helpful in the same way here, when you should just put yourself in a Zoom setting and try to pretend like it's the real thing.
Yeah, I just want to piggyback on a couple of things you said. Doing the practice sessions is so helpful because you can really just get a feel for how you feel comfortable on screen. So like when doing a practice session helps me make sure my eye line is right, that I'm always talking right into the camera and I'm not looking off here to the side, which is actually on my screen, Jessica, where you are. But I don't want to do that when I'm recording my talk. I need to look into the camera. So you pick up little things like that. And then in your gestures, however you naturally gesture, you do need to adjust that a little bit in a virtual environment because people aren't seeing your whole body. They're seeing you just in this box or a piece of you. So, and also one other thing that's also helpful with practice, if you can, I always try to record my sessions standing up. My husband actually has created a recording studio for us in a part of our living room. And so he has this nice little setup, and it's actually easier energetically. And I feel like I just deliver better when I'm standing up and my voice inflects better versus when I'm sitting down at my desk like I am now. So when you practice in whatever environment you have or can get access to, you might even book a room at a recording studio, something if you feel inclined. But when you practice, you get a chance to work that out and figure out what makes sense for you. So thanks for sharing your experience. Kalia, how about you? What did you do to actually prepare to record? And then how did you prepare for the interactive session as well?
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of what Jessica did, I think, is pretty universal, right? So I think the outline framework is a really powerful one, especially if you get a little bit of writer's block, which again, I think a lot of us have our own insecurities about sharing information. So sometimes we can just get a few bullet points and then learn to expand on that. And so for me, I actually pivoted a bit. So the 3 nuggets I submitted, when I started reworking that outline in my story, those 3 bullet points didn't actually make sense anymore. And so I would encourage you all that once you get to kind of that process, if you feel any apprehension to change it up a bit, don't feel anxiety around that. And so I did, and I didn't get in trouble, so you're probably fine. But I was learning the story a bit more, right? And I was getting a bit more confident in what I wanted to share. And so for me, storytelling is really important. So did go off of the outline framework that Jessica had mentioned. But what I was really trying to do is I was really trying to hit some emotional points. And I even called it out in my talk, is what I was really doing was making a big sales pitch about why we should change the way that we hire product managers. And so I really had 3 major modes, which are the argumentative modes, ethos, pathos, and logos. And I literally followed that. And so it worked out really nicely because that's how I picked what stories and pieces of the narrative that I wanted to share. And so for me, I'm a huge, again, stage performer. So similar to Sydney, it was really important that I was standing. I wasn't in this space, I was in a different space. So I could really get that energy, and it made me feel just more comfortable because, again, that was more the vibe of how I've spoken in the past. So it felt less anxious because it felt more natural. And I basically did it probably over 200 times, and I'm not kidding. I used to work at Apple, and Apple keynotes are iconic for practice, and that's why they seem so flawless. And so I really encourage you that once you spend the time to get your narrative right, literally just go through it 5 million times, because at the end of that, you're going to be more confident. You're going to sound more clear. It's just going to be a better talk because you have practiced it so much that you don't think the anxiety subsides because it becomes second nature. And so, I did my talk 1 million times. I recorded it every time. I watched it and semi-cringed every time I watched the recording. And then again, it's important to give yourself grace again, right? We're nitpicking. We might not like the way we look. We might not like the way we sound. And so I, like Jessica, had apprehension of sharing my talk to other people as well. But yeah, so for me, I recorded it a bunch. The one learning, or there's many learnings, but the one I will call out is that I misunderstood the recording parameters. And so I thought I needed to record it all in one take. And I thought it had to be behind like world's most boring background. So now I knew that that wasn't the case, and wish that I would have asked more questions, like I mentioned earlier, of the organizers to clarify, like, hey, can I have a more fun pattern t-shirt, or is it okay if I have some stuff in the background? I was really nervous, and so I just didn't ask those questions. So I would say, again, reiterating the asking questions piece, even while you're recording, if you have questions about which, I know people have asked about which software to use or file format, like, please just ask the question, because you being anxious and being unsure is like a waste of time. So you should just ask and get it resolved and move on to the next issue. And so practice as much as you can and ask questions and ask for help during the process, even at this step.
Yeah, I can't reiterate enough how important it is to practice so that you feel comfortable. Kalia, you said that like 19 times, so I'm not going to say it another 19, but just do what she said. The other thing that I have found that was really helpful in making my talks engaging and people remembering what I shared, and just getting the impact that I'm looking for, is to do kind of some surveying and some crowdsourcing of input from other folks. So no matter what I'm talking about, I'm always going to go gather some opinions or stories from other people. So for example, the talk I moderated at Women in Product last year was about adapting in a COVID era to working from home, which of course, everyone had to figure out how to do, even though I've been working from home for 17 years. So that wasn't really new for me, but it was for everybody else. So I still had to adjust, waiting for all my clients to figure out how to do it. So it was an adjustment for everyone. And so I actually went to a bunch of my clients who are women in product, who work at LinkedIn and Facebook and all these other companies. And I just asked them and had a conversation, like, what was your experience like? And what can you share with me about what you wish you would have done differently, or what you wish you would have known? And as I was moderating that session with the women on that panel, I was able to interject not only my own experiences of I still remember when I was getting used to working from home, but I was also able to take some of those real world anecdotes that were shared with me. I did a talk about supplier diversity last year, and I went and talked to like 15 supplier diversity managers at Fortune 500 companies and got their insights. So that's another way just to kind of flesh out your idea, build your level of comfort with your topic, and also bring in some other perspectives. Not that you're taking credit for other people's words, but it just adds more color and more interest to what you have to share, versus just your own perspective. So that could also be a part of your preparation process. And that is especially helpful when you get to the interactive session, as it works with Women in Product. Now, we don't know right now all the particulars of what this year's event's going to look like, but if it looks like it did last year, the sessions will be pre-recorded, and then all of us as speakers are there day of, and we're there to answer questions live. And so when you're answering your audience's questions, if you have other perspectives besides your own, you're going to really be able to empower the attendees with some rich insights that can really help them, versus just your own perspective on that topic. So again, it's just going to make for a much more interesting session. Is there anything else, Jessica or Kalia, sorry, I did so good up until now. Anything else you wish you knew about this process, or just the experience that you wish you would have known before you submitted last year, before you participated, that you can share with our audience?
Not so much I wish I knew, but I think just something to consider in your application is, how can I be most unique? Because I think there's a lot of overlap in topics that, product managers or people in product, wherever you lie on there, I'm not a product manager, but people in product can overlap on. And I think the Women in Product selection panel, speaker selection panel, is looking for novelty or something that's, up for the times. So I think if you just think like, what is something interesting that I can offer that's unique to me, but it's still engaging and useful, just overcorrect on that. I think that's kind of what I went through when I was picking a topic, and thinking what is useful for my audience, but still will set me apart.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for that, Jessica. Awesome. How about you, Kalia? Anything else that you wish you would have known or thought about before you went through this process last year?
Yeah, I mean, I hope I've done a good job of telling you all of my mistakes through this whole process. So I think, right, ask for help. If you want to not hate how you recorded yourself, ask questions to make sure you can do other fun things. But I think just one thing, again, if we're following the same format as last year, is because I was so disappointed with my video because of all the things I talked about, I was actually feeling really insecure about it going live and thinking it wouldn't be, the response wouldn't be that strong. But the actual highlight of this whole experience was the interactive session for me. Because we got more of that in-person connection, because it felt more like that stage dynamic that I really enjoy and love, and because I, feed off of people's energy. And so I would just say for everyone, even if you're not the kind of person that likes that kind of off the cuff question answering, which is very much my style, but I say it to mention that there are so many different dynamics to what Women in Product is offering with this new virtual kind of paradigm. So if you want to be moderating on a panel like Sydney had mentioned, and that seems more like your vibe, there's an opportunity for you to do that. If you are really nervous about doing a recorded video, but you really love the one-on-one interaction, then talks like what Jessica and I gave are great for you, right? And just pick one where you get a shorter time slot so you have less of a commitment there, right? So I would just encourage you to examine all the different ways you can get involved, because I think the event organizers did a really good job to have a dynamic kind of setup. And so you really have choices between a bunch of different kinds of frameworks. So find something that works for you and figure out, like Jessica said, the thing that you most enjoy and lean into that.
Nice. Thank you so much. So we have about 15 minutes left, and I'd really love to answer as many of these questions as we can. I think all three of us have been answering questions in between in here. So let me kind of go through here and grab the ones that we haven't gotten to yet. Let me start back up here at the beginning. So yes, if the conference speakers, per our knowledge now, this may change. And frankly, we're not, the three of us are not Women in Product staff. So we don't have specifics on, are all of the sessions going to be pre-recorded? Are breakouts allowed? Are polls allowed? Frankly, we just don't know. That would be a better question for the Women in Product team. So we're sharing with you our experience based on our what occurred last year, which was everything was just pre-recorded, and then the interaction was in that like live session the day of. So if that changes, I'm sure they'll let us know, but that's the information we have at this time. Is there a forum where I can get guidance on presentation topics? I think that would be a great question to reach out to the event organizing team about. They're very responsive, and I know they're very interested in embracing as many diverse perspectives and topics as possible. So I would say reach out to that team about that. Let's see. Other questions. Danielle asks, is there a way you can apply to moderate a session? Would you recommend moderating first if you've never spoken at an event before? I have a comment on that, but Jessica or Kalia, do you have any comments on that before I weigh in on it?
I think moderating is actually more difficult. I know usually people do think that if I have less airtime, that it's easier to do. It's not, because it's kind of like, I don't, no disrespect to me or Jessica, but it's kind of like herding cats. And so I think that is a higher level public speaking skill. And so I would actually say the opposite. I think it's actually easier to do a shorter form singular talk than it would be to host a panel. But I'm sure Sydney has her own thoughts as well.
Yeah, I have actually been a trained facilitator for many years, so moderating is very easy for me to do it, but it actually does require way more preparation. And when I'm moderating a panel, I have a very specific process I take my panelists through. We do a prep session. I organize questions for them. We usually have a shared Google Doc that we're in real time, like working through in live in a session. You've got to watch your time. You've got to make sure that people aren't repeating themselves over and over again. So it's a lot of mental gymnastics you have to do when you're moderating a session. But if you have great facilitation skills and you're good at that, by all means, it's a lot of fun. I really love doing it because it lets me have great conversations like this. Like I get to do this with Jessica and with Kalia. So I agree with what Kalia said, though. It's not necessarily easier, but it's definitely another format that you can submit to. And just in terms of how that works, not just with WIP, but just in general, a lot of times if I'm interested in moderating a session at an event, I'll just reach out to them and say that, like, hey, you know, I know that you guys are building your speaking roster right now. I've moderated discussions or panels at these events. I'd love to, you know, help you guys with one. If you need an extra moderator, let me know. That gets me in the door all the time. So if you have more questions about moderating or facilitation, feel free to ping me. And actually, ladies, let's go ahead and put all of our LinkedIn URLs in here, and that way folks can connect with us post session if they'd like. I'm happy to answer more questions about that, but that's typically how that works. They usually fill the speaking slots first and then kind of look to fill in the moderators. Any other tips that you all have? Serby asked about how to create a good recording for Audition. Do either of you want to weigh in on that one?
What I did is I kind of wrote out a little bit of a script. It's supposed to be 2 minutes or less, maybe 3 at most, just to see how you speak in front of an audience or kind of what your vibe is. So I wrote a little bit of a masterclass hook type of thing because I saw a lot of YouTube videos about masterclasses around this time when I submitted. So I was like, oh, this is cool. I'll do the same thing, but not as well produced. So I recorded and wrote a little like what my pitch was, wrote it down, practiced in a room, and then just didn't look at it. Once I got it in my mind, I was like, okay, I know my pitch. And then I, you know, practiced it inside of a bathroom just to like get a really good acoustic sound maybe. And I had a very small apartment. I didn't have that much space with like a good background and stuff. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Just sound excited and engaged and really intonate on your key value props. Yeah, I think that's basically it.
Yeah, +1 to everything she said. I love that you recorded in the bathroom. You can sometimes, depending on where you live, get your best acoustics in the bathroom. I live in a loft, and depending on what we're doing, my husband and I record in the bathroom all the time. So
Cool.
even
Good to know.
it's just, you know, depending on where you're at, sometimes that's the best. If we can't get into our preferred recording studio, we do that more often than I'd like to admit. So thanks for that. I'm just looking through here, and feel free, Kalia, to weigh in on that if you have any other tips while I'm looking for the next question. Someone already answered the question about, okay, so is there some kind of specific software recommendation for integrating the slide and speaking? How does this work? Would WIP give us some guidance and training on that? So I'm not WIP, so I can't speak for them, but there is a tool that does that quite easily. It's called Camtasia, and it's very easy to take your raw video file, like your MP4 or your .mov, and then your final slides, and then integrate them together. So let me give you a couple of little tips on that. First of all, the easiest way to do this is to build your slides in PowerPoint. And then what you want to do once they're final, they're clean, they're proofread, everything you need to do, you want to convert your slides to high-res images. So if you don't know how to do that, a tool that I have found online to do that, it's called smallpdf.com, just like it sounds, smallpdf.com. You can easily convert your PowerPoint deck into high-res images. It's very important that you convert the deck to high-res, because if you don't, you're going to have high-res video and low-res images, and that does not look good. So you don't want your beautiful face on high-res video going to these fuzzy looking images because of your slides. So you want to make sure that everything stays high res. And then in Camtasia, you can lay them together. I will be honest, my assistant does this for me. I don't do it on my own, but when she sets it up for me and sends it to me, I can tweak it if I need to. So you don't have to be like crazy tech savvy to do it, although I think most of us are. But it's a tool that can let you do that quite easily if you want to integrate your talking head video and then intersperse some of your slides. And I'll also give you another insider's tip that often what I will do is I will use my slides and strategically insert them when I kind of mess up my eye line, when I look to the side when I'm not supposed to. I will insert a slide right there, and then it keeps it nice and seamless. So there's a few tricks like that that you can do to keep your videos, your final video, looking really good, and that lets you integrate your head and your slides. So hopefully that suggestion was helpful, and WIP may be giving some more guidance from that. I don't know, so we'll see. I also can't speak to the selection process to shortlist speakers, unfortunately, because we don't work for them. We just don't know. In terms of receiving feedback, I think the answer to that is you just get a yes or a no. When I got my no, it was just a thank you very much. We got so many submissions and we weren't able to include yours. I didn't get any feedback on it. So I would think that the answer is no. And to be honest, I can't think of most of the time my sessions do get picked up, but when they don't, I don't ever get feedback. So if you would like feedback, I would say you should just reach out to the conference organizer and ask them, like, hey, thank you for, I appreciate that you couldn't include mine, no problem. But is there any feedback you could give me to improve my submission next time? I think that's a really fair question to ask. So any thoughts on that, ladies, if you want to share or weigh in? Jessica or Kalia?
Yeah, we didn't get any feedback either, other than here's all the logistics. These are the deadline to get cooking. But I would second Sydney's call that I have found the women in product staff and event planners to be incredibly kind humans. So I definitely assume that if you messaged in, they'd be able to get you whatever you need.
Yeah, I agree. So Manzi asked, is being a product manager or at a higher designation a necessity? Does someone just starting out in product also have a chance? I don't think that's a necessity at all. I am not a product manager. My clients are product managers and have been for many years. So I think I have a very different perspective on these topics than a lot of y'all do, but we still are playing in the same space. I'm supporting you guys and you guys are trying to support your customers. So I think there's a space for everyone. I think, they want to hear from the people who are new versus all the way the people who, are at the highest level. So I wouldn't hesitate to participate because you're new. And like Jessica said, she's been, doing this for a year and a half and she already submitted and was picked up as a speaker. So don't let being new in your role hold you back.
Yeah, I was just exactly going to second that. Like, I had no product management experience. I was only in my role for, I think, 9 months when I applied, probably like 10 months, and now it's a year and a half. So I think if you have good quality content, I think you should just, push yourself and apply. The worst thing that can happen is they say no, but just do it.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so we have a bunch of LinkedIn posts here, which is great. I saw someone ask, let me try to get back to that question. Someone was asking Justine, who's interested in doing a more interactive presentation. I feel you on that, Justine. I have issues with the pre-recorded thing myself. So thank you for surfacing this. So I'm going to put my instructional designer hat on because I've also been an instructional designer for 25 years. There are ways, even with a pre-recorded session, to build interaction into your presentation. So we have 4 minutes left and I don't have a whole lot of time to dig into that with you right now. But if you do a little bit of research on instructional design or creating an interactive pre-recorded session, I think you'll find some great ideas because there's a lot of ways to do that, even if you are pre-recording and your audience is going to watch it and you're going to be there interacting with them live. So if you want to talk with me offline about that, feel free to ping me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to chat with you on that. Or if you have some instructional designers, which I'm sure you do at your company, they may be able to help you with that as well. But you don't have to do just the flat kind of talking head, talking straight for 20 minutes session pre-recorded without any interactivity. I think it's really powerful to give your audience activities, to give them the space to actually think about what you're saying and not be talking at them nonstop, to give them the space to be able to take action on something that you've said. So so do a little research on that and see what you come up with. And then someone else along those lines had asked, like, are polls allowed? Are breakout rooms allowed? At this point, we don't know. So that would be a question for Women in Product. But certainly if that is an option, that's something we would all want to take advantage of. So that's my 2 cents on that. And Kalia and Jessica, if you have anything to add, please do.
Sydney is obviously very well experienced, so she hits all the points. That was a decision I also had to make on my talk too, because I was leaning towards trying to do some of those more interactive things. And again, back to what I said earlier, like lean into what you feel more comfortable in. And it would be a little bit outside of my comfort zone to do more of the interactive stuff because I'd never done it before. And so I leaned into my more traditional sense. So yeah, lots of good resources out there, like Sydney had mentioned.
And there's actually, I have to say, in the last year, I've been producing virtual conferences since 2008. So actual, like, real virtual conferences, like not just a webinar, but like a virtual networking lounge and virtual exhibit booths and the whole 9 yards. And I have seen a dramatic increase in functionality in what software is able to do in the last year than I've seen in the last 10 years. So, you know, I don't know what platform the team is planning to use this year, but there may be more options for interaction that weren't available last year. So that's again, a great question for the team to see what they're planning and how you can build that into your session. And that's a good tip for whatever conferences you're going to speak at this year, to make sure you really press them to ask like what the tool is and to give you access and to let you learn that so you can build that into your session as you're preparing it. So we're almost at time, and I'm a stickler for ending on time, so I don't want us to go over. But I want to say thank you so much to all of you who took time out of your day to join us for this session. It has been recorded. The recording will be shared with you. Thank you so much, Jessica and Kalia. It was so fun to have this conversation with each of you. Lovely to meet you. Looking forward to staying in touch. And you see all of our LinkedIn handles in the chat. So please connect with each other. Keep supporting each other. It's still a tough time. We all are still in this together. We're going to make it through this together. And if I or Jessica or Kalia can be of support to you in any way, please do reach out and let us know. So stay safe, ladies. Have a great evening, and we'll look forward to seeing you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thanks for being such an awesome host, Sydney.
You're welcome.
And Kalia, I loved being on the panel with you. Love your energy.
You're welcome.
Thanks everyone for the good questions. Bye.
Bye.